Hi, guys. Welcome to the podcast. I am so happy to have you here. We have Nicole Gregg-Armaz and Amanda McNutt, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Nicole, Amanda, and I went to college together. We were in the same speech pathology program, communication sciences and disorders, and now we have all chosen the same path. Crazy, not crazy, I'm not really sure. Verdict's out. But we all own our own private practice, and we're just in different places in the state. So thank you so much for being here, you guys.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you.
So excited to be here.
Let's start with you, Amanda. Why don't you just tell people a little bit more about you and your background and your family and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. So I graduated with my master's in 2009 and moved to the Sacramento area. I kind of dabbled in almost every setting in speech therapy and settled on private practice as being my most favorite. I do love working with adults and kids, which is a huge reason I chose to do private practice because I could do both. So I opened my practice in 2017. I am married, living in Roseville, living with my husband and our two daughters, and loving the area. So yeah, I'm kind of learning the ropes of owning a business and being a mom and a wife and doing all the things. So
all the things.
That's all the things.
All the things. What about you, Nicole?
Same. Me and Amanda graduated together in 2009. I came back to Solano County, where I'm originally from, so was living in Vacaville for quite some time, and I worked for another private practice who specialized primarily in pediatrics. Got lots of experience there as far as therapy, evaluations, all of that stuff, but also kind of stepped into a role there as a supervisor and some billing stuff and all sorts of different experience. So once I felt very well versed in all of that, I took the leap the same year that I was getting married. So it's been almost 6 years now to open my own private practice. So our practice specializes in pediatrics. We see mostly early intervention, but some preschool and school age kids as well. And then I have several FLIPAs and really enjoyed the coaching aspect of the supervision part of it. And my husband also owns a business, so that makes things a little wild because we're running two businesses. His is a little smaller scale, and so, but we have to learn both, like how to do a bigger one and how to do a smaller one. And so that's an interesting dynamic also. But yeah, we live here in Vacaville still, and 3 kids and another baby on the way. So yeah, it's great.
You have a lot of free time.
A roller coaster.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Free time, no. None.
So we all went to Chico State together. So I think that's fun. So anyone listening from Chico, I highly advise Chico for college.
Yes.
Not because it's a party school, but
Right.
because it's just amazing place to go to school. And then what are the names of your practices, just so people can know, Amanda?
Mine is Cornerstone Speech Services, and we're located in Fair Oaks, California.
Nicole?
And we are the Speech Academy, and our corporate office is in Vacaville. I didn't mention this when we were just talking, but and then we have a small hybrid office out of Davis also, so we serve a little bit of Yolo and Sacramento counties also.
Nice. So, okay, so that's kind of what you guys are doing now, and that's great. But like, let's talk about like the real part of that journey, because that was summarized so beautifully. Like it just flowed, and you ended up as business owners. And there was, I have my kids and
No
my
hiccups.
and also beautiful rainbows and butterflies, but like that's not real. So let's talk about it. So what made you guys decide I want my own. I want to do this on my own. I'm going to take that leap to go on my own. And were you scared? Were you scared when you did that?
I was terrified when I decided to make the choice, but to be honest, I made the choice to open up my own private practice after I had my first child, just realizing how much flexibility I needed in my position with a sick kid all the time. And I felt so guilty, leaving work sometimes just to take her to the doctor or do those necessary appointments. My husband worked out of town almost every day, so I was the parent that had to do all of these running around appointments. So I started my practice and started super small. I was terrified. You're jumping into something you're going from a stable income to completely unpredictable. You have no idea what to expect.
Was it just you when you started?
It was just me. I started with just myself. I didn't start hiring employees until at least 2 years in, maybe a year and a half in. So by that point, I was ready to hire help. So I started with hiring a couple SLPAs, and then
Which is a speech language pathology assistant.
Right. And then was able to hire an SLP a little bit later on. So it definitely hasn't been a smooth journey. It hasn't been easy. It's the most I've ever worked, ever.
Okay, so that was my question, because you said I wanted for my own practice to have more flexibility in my day. Mm-hmm. And I would say I can relate to that, but I felt like, little did I know I was never going to work more.
Right. So
because
much.
Now you're at a point where, like, if you cancel your sessions to go take your daughter somewhere, you just lost a lot of money.
Right.
And once you start hiring, you need to be available to your staff. So do you feel like it gave you that flexibility, or do you feel like you're only now gaining that flexibility like 6 years in?
I mean, even 6 years in, I don't feel like I have the flexibility that I wanted initially. I think I felt less guilty letting down, a supervisor or another speech therapist, at the school. I felt less guilty, taking a day off or something if I needed to for important reasons, not just because. Mm-hmm. So even though I felt less guilty, now I'm literally losing out on dollars. So it's not flexible. it doesn't offer the flexibility. Yeah.
Business ownership isn't as attractive. It's not as easy as it may look from the outside. But I 100%. Do it in a way? No, because this is what I do now, but I definitely did not know what I was getting myself into. What 100%. About you?
I mean, I have very similar feelings about all of that stuff. I do have to say that I am, I don't know. I think I'm just in a little bit of a different place. Like, yes, dollars lost, and when I'm not here, who knows really what's sometimes maybe going on, or I can't be accessible all the time to my employees if I'm not present. But that was a huge reason that I went out on my own also, is the flexibility. And I worked my tail off for someone else for multiple years to experience and gain the knowledge and become confident in a position. And so I felt like in opening my own, I wanted to then be sure that I didn't have to work 40 hours a week, therapy hours, as far as that goes, like being at the clinic for 40 hours a week. I didn't want to work 8 to 5. I wanted to be at my kids' music class if that's at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. And I wanted to be able to be, like Amanda was mentioning, the one to take them to doctor's appointments and take them to the emergency room when that has to happen. Like, I didn't want to rely on anyone else, and I don't. I truly don't. Like, I have a nanny, we have a care provider that's great, and she can do all those things, but I don't allow her to do those things. And I just leave when I need to leave. And that's one thing that I've just had to be like hard on myself about. Like, I know the business needs me, but my family needs me more. And at the end of the day, like, I can go and work for someone else if I had to. And I know that. So like, if I failed at this, which would be a huge knock to the ego, and I would hope that that never happened, I know I can go obtain a job doing what I still love, if it came to that. You know what I mean? So I just have to be like true to myself and true to the reason that I opened my practice. And that was working part-time as far as client hours go, and being accessible for my family. And I do feel like I have tried really, really hard to stay true to that. Now, I work part-time hours as far as clients go. So I see clients 3 days a week. But I mean, my employees probably are like, why is Nicole sending us an email at 10:20 p.m.? You know, that's when I do the stuff that I could be doing at the office on those other days, but I don't. I work from home late at night, or, you know, I work from home a couple of hours a day on my days off, quote unquote, my days off, when my kids are napping or whatever that looks like. I do squeeze in work hours, you know, during that time. So I don't know. It's flexibility for me in that regard, because I can work from home with the business side of stuff or the logistical side of stuff. You obviously can't be seeing clients at that time. But when I started out, I started with myself and another slipper from the door opening. And so that was great because I already had like that team kind of effort as far as relying on a very, very phenomenal flipper that I had also worked with in the past. So I knew her work ethic, I knew her capabilities, and I knew I could trust her. And then I just kind of continued to grow and expand from there. So
one thing you said, Nicole, at the beginning of that I want to go back to, though, is you said you worked your tail off in somebody else's practice for years to gain the knowledge. So I want to know kind of, you know, as somebody newer to the field and starting in the workforce, like, what did you do? How many years did you do that? And what did you gain from doing that before jumping into business ownership? Or do you think that was helpful before you jumped into business ownership?
It was definitely helpful. I mean, let's see, from the second that I graduated, I had gotten that job before we even finished, like most of us had obtained a job before graduation, you know, eager to start work. And so I think I started in like the end of July. We graduated in May. I went on a little vacation. I knew my licensure was good to go. I started in July, and I worked there for, oh my gosh, until 2016. So like 7-8 years, I guess. And yeah, I was under the same boss, and with, you know, the growth that was happening with her practice, I was able to supervise a lot of slippas, learn like the coaching aspect of things, learn how to coach.
Amazing.
What's that?
I just think that must have been amazing, because I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm thinking like my previous experience was in schools, and then I went into private practice, and I always said, like, if I was to do my career over, I would have worked in someone else's private practice first, because I went in blind practice, and all of a sudden I was like, private practice therapist, business owner, whatever. But you got to like watch and be
I did. And of course you learn from, just like if you were a school therapist, you learn from what your experience is. And so you learn what you really liked about it, and you learned what you didn't love so much about it. And you learned what worked as a employee of a private practice and what didn't feel like it worked. And so I've kind of been able to structure my business accordingly, as far as, okay, well, when I was in a therapist position with a supervisor, I didn't love it when X, Y, or Z happened. So I'm going to try really hard to not have that same, you know, chain of command, or that same, whatever it was, experience for my employees. That being said, all the business side of everything, I had no concept of that. I mean, I shouldn't say I had no concept. I had some concept of that, but I didn't have half of the knowledge that you just have to learn by doing it.
think once you crossed over to the business side, you had a little bit more empathy for why your boss made decisions that she made that you couldn't understand when you were an employee because you didn't understand the pressures that you had as a business owner, where you were like, oh, I kind of get
sure. Yeah, definitely. I also had we have a great family friend that's been in our family, is actually my dad's college roommate. His wife is an SLP and owns private practices in the Bay Area. And she mentored me as far as like, this is, you'll have to have this and you'll need to do this. And so I was preparing a lot of those things on the back end before I even like came up with a business name. Like I just kind of had preparation. Yeah. I had an in, which was really, really nice because I know so many people don't have that. You know what I mean? But that's also why I feel like Amanda and I have been great friends. Amanda has seen my practice, multiple times before she decided to go out on her own. And I felt like not an obligation, of course, Amanda's a great friend of mine, and I think Jesse and I, we had multiple phone conversations over the course of that time too. Like, how do you know all of this stuff? I didn't know this stuff. Someone gave me this information. Yeah.
Before me, and I would be like, hey, like, what the hell is this? What the fuck do I do with this? Like, I'm so confused right now. Like, I know I have to keep going, but like, what? Like,
what next?
Yeah. And it's like simple things and then like really complicated things. And
absolutely.
It's
it's a learning curve too on like, well, is there a rule about that, or do I get to make up that rule as the business owner? Like, do I need to find something that says that rule, or is that for me to determine? That's the confusing part still to this day after multiple years of doing this. Like,
I have learned since we live in California, there's probably a rule about it.
It's true, but it's documented on like page 965 of a document that you're never going to read. Right, so and it's the small asterisk at the bottom.
Like, we're just going to pay your $75 email fee to tell us the answer.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst.
So much, like, I don't know how many times I've been like, why do people do this in California? Like, it's just so tricky. But I mean, here we're all still doing it. So there's obviously payoff. I just remember like I wanted to be more a part of like the bigger picture. Like in the schools, I felt like all they cared about was like me getting my work done on time and like not even the treatment, like the paperwork. But I wanted to like really be with those families and like really have an opinion at the table and really share my knowledge and be involved. And that's what private practice gave me. And that's what ownership gave me. Like I get to help make those bigger decisions. It's probably just like my controlling type A nature that led me to where I am. And keeps me where I am. Because I don't know. Okay. So getting started, totally scary. We definitely didn't embark on what we thought we were embarking on. But we just decided to keep going, right? And so what would you say were some of your bigger challenges the first like 2 years?
Man, I think some of my biggest challenges the first 2 years were probably developing things like policies and, creating a handbook and kind of like the businessy HR side of things, but making sure I had something set up so that when I did hire an employee, that it would be structured. It's not just me anymore. My business had to follow through to other employees now and still look the same. So
did that feel heavy for you? Because that's like out of our scope as therapists. So
totally. Yeah, it was complete. I mean, I've never taken a business course or anything. I knew nothing about this. So obviously, like you said, I paid extra for the HR side of ADP is who we use for payroll. So they helped me with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of the hard part is that because we only have our speech pathology background, we don't have the business background, we have to pay other people to help us with that part of our business because we don't have the training. So I mean, that's really tricky sometimes because it's expensive. I also feel like, finding employees sometimes is tricky, and just making sure that I can keep them happy. So it's something that I still work for every day. So
post-pandemic.
Especially. Yeah.
Okay, so you said a couple things I want to touch on, and Nicole, jump in with any thoughts that you're having. But figuring out what to do, like for me, I think I would have said like the policies and all that is heavy. But like when I really sit back and think about it, and I don't know if you guys had the same experience or maybe you're more confident than I was, but it wasn't even getting those tasks done. It was it was how fearful I was and the imposter syndrome I was feeling as I was trying to do that if I could have just had the confidence as I broached those challenges, I think I would have been so much more like at peace. But I was like doing things that I didn't know how to do overwhelmed me so much and caused me so much internal like grief.
Yes.
Did you guys experience that?
100%. I feel like I still do. I still do sometimes. Yeah.
Daily.
With what parts?
The confidence. I think sometimes just having that confidence and knowing, what I'm doing and owning being a business owner. And I mean, sometimes that's hard for me. I feel like I'm a little bit of a softie. So the business owner type of decisions that I have to make sometimes are really, really hard for me. So yeah, it's still a struggle.
It's hard. It's hard not making.
For me, I feel like the biggest struggle or like anxiety producing thing was the financial side of everything. It's hard to, number one, disclose financial information to people, be it therapists, employees, parents, clients, families. Any kind of financial conversation is always a little bit uncomfortable. And unfortunately, that's just the society that we live in. When we talk about money, it's uncomfortable. But when you're first rolling out a business, unless you're starting somehow with this great money roll, it's like you're waiting for every last payment to come in. And then you're like, okay, good. I think I'll make payroll. Or, okay, good. I can buy all those therapy materials that I promised. Or, okay, good. Especially when you're first starting out, because when you're first starting out, there is, like Amanda said, like a lot of fear based on like, okay, how am I going to get clients? And how am I going to get, like, I'm doing this on my own and I'm brand new and I'm brand new to this business. So they're not going to recognize the name of the business. They're not going to, you don't have an established rapport with places that would refer to you or what have you. So for me, it was the financial side of everything. With everything else, I was like, it'll fall into place. I'm not going to like stress too much about that part of it. I need to make sure that like we're up, we're running. I can pay my employee that I had, and that kind of conversation to have with an employee is also like when you're first starting out, like, hey, this month, a payday might be a couple days late and I'm really sorry. Like, and we all have bills to pay, so that's unfair. And I was in that experience a couple of times in my past place of employment. They were going through some changes and whatever. And it was like, they would come to us and say, hey, so sorry, this is what's happening. You'll be paid on X date, which was 3 days after paid. And it was like, no way, man. I got bills. I have a car payment. I have and so as an employer, having to have that kind of conversation or have that kind of fear, like that is just, I never want my employees to feel put out, or like even when payday lands on a holiday and it has zero to do with us and everything to do with like banks don't post on Labor Day, you got to get paid on the 6th or whatever it is. I hate that. I hate it. I wish that like there was something I could do about that, but there's just not, So for me, most of the anxieties, and especially here in this post-COVID cluster that we're in, the financial part of it has been very, very difficult. Yeah, just not able to anticipate. And then, I know we've had dialogue outside of this about like all the cancellations because people are nervous to bring their kid who has a drippy nose, but yet 2 years ago they would have brought them, we wouldn't have batted an eye. We would have billed for the session, and life goes on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's just one of those kind of ebb and flow things where like sometimes it's great, the money's flowing, you have no issues, and other times you're like, how the hell are we going to make it to the next pay period? Like, you know?
Yeah, there was a time that we've never told our staff, your pay day is going to be pushed back a little bit. But what we did to counteract that is we pulled out of our personal savings to make payroll. And that is some scary shit. And it's just like, because, you know, we contract with insurance companies. So when they switch up a contractor, something gets messy in their system and all of a sudden they stop paying you until you rectify that. All of a sudden our therapists are treating but the money didn't come in, and then all the cancellations due to illnesses. And our staff is mostly salaried, so they're getting paid. And we had to do that at one point. And it's really heavy. It's really hard to like put your pillow or your head on your pillow at night and peacefully go to sleep when that's looming over you. So it's like, yeah, maybe there's the benefit of the flexibility if you need it, but there's also like this new stress of like, you're the bottom line, right? So it's navigating through that and finding how to work through that anxiety and that fear, which I think is every day. Every day you have a new situation presenting yourself when you're a business owner, presenting itself, and how do I show up peacefully to handle this one? And some days like are not so peaceful. Yesterday morning, I was not peaceful.
Me either. I wasn't peaceful yesterday either. My poor husband takes the brunt.
Faster now, but it was not peaceful. Yeah. So yeah, that's hard. Was there a point in your guys's progression where you kind of felt like, okay, I kind of like, yes, there's highs and there's lows, but I kind of am getting the swing of it. There's a little bit more of a flow to this. And if so, how many years in were you? And what do you think allowed that to come?
I think, you know, I probably started getting the hang of the day-to-day maybe a year ago.
How many years into that was it?
So 4. It was 4.
You hung on through 4 stressful relationship years. So how did you do that?
Hang on.
Yeah.
I was so determined to make this the dream I'd always dreamed about, you know. I don't know about you, but I feel like when I graduated from grad school, I always wanted to own my private practice. I remember being an intern at a private practice in Chico, and I was just in awe.
Melinda?
Was it Linda? No, Paula.
No. Oh, Paula. I did Melinda. Yeah.
Okay. I was just in awe of her and what she was doing, and I wanted to do that. You know, I wanted to be her. So I did it, and I didn't want to give up. I just wanted to keep going, and I remember just kind of venting to both of you too. Like, is this going to get better? Is this going to turn around like after COVID, you know? So, I mean, I'm glad I'm still hanging on, but man, it is stressful. It's stressful. It's not easy.
What would you say are some of the harder aspects of what COVID's done? I mean, I know we've talked about it, but
yeah, I mean, you know, kind of just piggybacking off of what Nicole said, the cancellations, you know, and making up that cost, or figuring out how to make up that cost when you have salaried employees. It's very difficult. We had to make the decision to increase caseload size and reduce prep times, and that's hard.
So did you increase caseload size?
We did. We did. So Not a ton, but we did increase it to 30 for a full-time employee. It's 32 clients. While that might look like a crazy schedule, it's just I try to kind of ensure them you're going to have cancellations every week. It's just a given. And this is how we can kind of try to make a dent in the financial effects, to the business. So
I feel like just to jump in on that part too,
yeah,
over the years, I have not shared the business side of things with my employees. I've tried to keep employees and therapists understanding the therapeutic side of things and what needs to happen there, and keeping the business side very separate. But COVID and post-COVID have taught me that it's time to be transparent with my therapist and my team, so that they have a true understanding of what's going on here. If we're not serving clients or their families, we're not getting reimbursed at that time. So when I'm not getting reimbursed, or the business is not getting reimbursed as a whole, where do we expect the money to come from in order for me to pay your payroll or paychecks? And there's always these just looks of huh? I don't know. There's just no understanding of there's overhead and there's other business expenses like workers' comp insurance and benefit pay and PTO and sick time and all these things that there's no there's no consideration on their end. They just obviously, understandably, want to be paid because they're at work. But
it's not
their
responsibility
I had to
think of all these things, right? That's why
exactly
they don't have as much flexibility maybe as you, because they're choosing not to have the stress, and that's their right. They shouldn't have to think about that. But you're right, COVID did change that. So what do you feel is the reaction when you share that? Do they were well, if this is they're how can I help? What can I do? Or is it well, if this business is struggling, I'm going to go get a job somewhere else? How do you feel?
No, I feel for the most part, my team has been very receptive to the explanations and the transparency that I have provided. I feel they've been open to trying other things. And, this cold and flu season, we're just rolling something out. Obviously, we're telling clients, parents, and families, yes, if your kid is severely ill, please don't bring them here. And if they have a fever or whatever, don't bring them here. A drippy nose is okay. A little cold is okay. But if they're coughing and you don't want to bring them in, then let's hop on telehealth and let's supplement with telehealth as a substitution. And then I've explained to the employees, you're still then getting paid for your session that is being held, but we're supplementing in a different way. So we're just having to be a little bit more creative. And if COVID did teach us anything, it was that piece of creativity of okay, is telehealth ideal for early intervention? No, it's not. Yes, the parent dynamic or the parent coaching can be great and it can work just fine, but we want to be hands-on with the clients because that's what we do. We do therapy with the clients. And then during that therapeutic intervention, we also talk to the family and include them. But our number one is being hands-on and showing and modeling and all of that stuff. And telehealth really limits that, but we've just had to do our best in what we can do, So I do feel they're more understanding rather than just being oh, so-and-so canceled, versus then coming to me and saying, I did offer telehealth, so we are going to give it a shot. Okay, great. Thank you so much. That's perfect. That's all I'm asking, Right.
I think another thing that I've never done, but I think I'm going to start doing it is, we are small businesses, right? We're not a small boutique clothing store or, a coffee shop, right? And I think that's more what the population thinks of when they think of a small business. They think of cute, nice, or a family-owned restaurant. We're more medical healthcare, so I don't think we're viewed that way. But I think I need to really start talking to our patients and their families about hey, when you hop on telehealth, you're supporting a small business. We are a small business, and small business support is so important. Otherwise, there aren't going to be small businesses, and it is going to be all these big companies taking over. And I think I've always just been really, really scared to push that side of the business because we deal with insurance companies, and it's it's therapy for their children. But I was like, no, I'm not going to be scared to share that part of this journey, because
in order for us to sustain as a business, we have to see you, whether it's through telehealth or in person. And that's kind of the policy that we just rolled out for cold and flu season. Like, in order to sustain as a business, like if you want your kid to get therapy from us in the next several years, for us to be here still, we have to sustain. And in order to sustain, we have to hold sessions, plain and simply.
I mean, bottom line, right? We unfortunately made the decision to let an employee go, not because this wasn't a great employee, but a lot of stuff happened with insurances and the caseload disappeared. And one of the parents got very mad at us, very, very mad that her child's therapist was no longer there. And, what you want to say is like, I can't keep someone on a full-time salary for 5 children. I wish I could. I wish I had a money tree. But like, if we're not pulling in, and then it's like the pain of letting down the families and the kiddos and the staff. But it's like, at the end of the day, for me, the biggest one has been like, at some point I have to take the emotional component out of it, which is bizarre for me to do, and make a smart financial decision. You guys were saying at the beginning, wanting to make everybody happy. And I think that was a huge learning curve for me. I said yes to everything. And then I would have to go back and say no, because it hurt the business. And now I try to like take a moment and know I can't make everybody happy and keep.
Yeah.
But that to me was a really hard learning curve.
Yeah. I've, over the past couple of years, also had to really, really tighten up on the time off and the requests for time off and things like that. And I hate to do it. I hate to do it. I especially hate to do it because we're a female-dominated business. We're either young females starting families or we have children. And I try and be very, very understanding of that. I just sat here and told you guys, like, the reason that I opened my private practice, that flexibility and to be with my family and my children. However, that's why I own the business and don't work for someone. I can't say yes to every single request off when your child has a field trip or when your child is homesick from school, or I wish I could, but again, sustainability of the business. And if I say yes to you, then when Jenny Smith comes and needs 3 days off for her kid being sick, and then Susie Lou comes and has the same situation, then I have no employees that entire week. You know what I mean? So like, you've already taken all your time off for the year, or you've exhausted, your personal time or what have you. I hate that. I hate saying no to you, but like sustainability for the business, I have to say no to you.
It's always writing that line. How do you deal with people being upset with you? Because I know as therapists first, we got into what we do to make people feel good. So how do you guys personally, whether it's a client or somebody that works at your clinic, or your husband because you're working too much, or your child saying, "Mommy, I need your attention," how do you guys manage through the moments when you feel like you're disappointing somebody else?
I feel like that's the hardest. And I mean, again, I still struggle with that. I personally don't like letting anyone down, and I don't like upsetting anyone. It's very uncomfortable, especially if you have to be around them. If it's somebody at work, you have to be around them every day. If it's my husband and I'm putting too much into the business and I'm not there at home and present, even when I am there at home, it obviously creates conflict sometimes. And you have to, I know everyone says, self-care and making sure you take care of yourself so that you can handle those situations a little better, but it's very difficult. And so, I mean, I try to run. I feel like that keeps my anxiety down. I'll get home from work, and on a really crappy day, I'll just throw on my headphones and then obviously wait for my husband to get home, and then I go. But it's hard. I still struggle with it every single day.
Yeah. It's hard to let people down.
So hard.
Yeah. I feel like with clients and clients' families, I have just come to a point in my business ownership / career that I'm never going to make everyone happy. I'm just not. And they're not going to like my policies. And there's going to be some people that always have a reason or a comeback or, a comment or what have you. And I feel like we all know this also, like there's waiting lists. So if we lose one client, we gain another. Like, and if we lose that client based on them, violating our policies or what have you, too many cancellations or lack of payment or whatever it is, then like that's a business policy. And just like any other doctor's or dental office, you would be excused from the practice. And so I've just gotten to a point with that part of it that I'm like pretty cut and dry. And I make sure my therapists know that like I will handle that side of things so they don't have to have uncomfortable conversations with families or parents or what have you. It's definitely not not my favorite thing to do, but our door is always open, and so we have new families that then we get to serve and establish relationships with. So I just try and remind myself of that. Like, even though times feel really, really hard right now, there's more clients that are calling and there's more clients that are inquiring. So it's not like those ones that kind of are the sour ones. It's okay because they'll be replaced with someone else. As far as making employees unhappy or feeling like I've disappointed them, kind of like what Jesse said, I've just tried to take the emotion out of all of that part of it. And like policy is policy. And that's kind of what I go back to when I communicate with my employees. Like, while I would love to give you X, Y, and Z, unfortunately, you've already exhausted those options. And if I do it for you, then there's several other team members that I owe it to as well. And I can't do that. So at this time, the answer is no, or the request is declined, or whatever it is. And I try and keep it very, very cut and dry. It's hard. It's really hard.
Really hard. I really want people to like feel happy and good when they come to work, but the way, our business operates, they're busy. They're really busy, and I want to protect them, but I also need the business to work. One thing that Ben, my husband, and I talk about is we all have love languages. So we try to implement things into the business to show our gratitude towards them. But then sometimes we have to step back and be like, just because we think this makes them feel special, it might not.
Right.
This might not be their love language at all. So we're actually talking about going back to the drawing board and being like, what makes each individual person that works there tick, so that we can speak to them in a way that makes them feel appreciated. Because it might be a gift, or it might just be a thank you card, or it might just be the face words of affirmation and gratitude. So really for me is, there's this whole side of running it, but like, what can I do for you? So, like, you're not just here working. Like, I actually I do see you and I do appreciate you, because I feel like that's just such an important part of it. I do want to transition. How do you guys, because you both have young children, how do you juggle that and navigate through working and mommyhood?
I don't.
Nicole, I'm going to let you have this one first.
Hour by hour.
Your hands are way more full than mine.
I said in the beginning, like, I truly try and stick to, these are the days I'm working and these are the days I'm off. My kids are 19 months, 3 and 5, and my 3 and 5-year-old definitely know, like, oh, it's Monday. Mommy it's not a work day for mommy, So if I switch it up and say like, ooh, guys, today mommy has to go to work, there's a lot of disappointment. Like, and that's only going to get more significant as they get older. So that's another reason that I try and hold very true. Like, obviously, if I have to, change things up, then they learn that, like, and we talk a lot about like, oh, well, it's a little different today because mommy has to go to work for just a little while, and then I'll be there to pick you up from school or whatever it is, But I truly still feel like I'm learning, like, on a weekly, daily basis, how to best juggle and how to navigate being a good mom or a great mom or a present mom and a business owner and a good boss and colleague and supervisor and feel accessible to my employees, But yeah,
you
just trying
in every direction.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the time. Yeah. Or my daughter's like, oh, Mom, are you just checking your work email again? If I'm like open on my laptop, I'm like, actually, I'm ordering groceries, but I do other things besides work on my computer too. But like that's the association, And then if I am checking my work emails, then it's like, yeah, but I'll be done in 1 minute, Like then I'm like, crap, I need to close my computer and just be present, and I can do work email later, And I do make it a point to always tell my employees, if you need to call me, call me. If you need to text me, text me. You're not bothering me. This is my responsibility to be accessible to you. I'm normally able to get to my phone. If I can't, I will be with you within the hour or so,
Yeah.
So just being real with them also, about that part of it. But
yeah,
I don't know. I try. I don't sleep a lot. That also contributes to like being able to help across class projects and like,
really nice to work a full 23 hours of my day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Nicole needs to incorporate more of that self-care in once she has all 4 babies here.
Oh my gosh, I know.
I don't think until my kids were a little bit older that I really was like, okay, like I'm a human too. And this, I have to factor this in because I don't like how I'm showing up for anyone. But once I started incorporating in those moments for myself, now I can't not have them because then I really feel a lack. It's really hard to let yourself be the first one to give up time.
Yeah.
Because you feel guilty not for everybody else.
Right.
Exactly. And rely. And one thing that I will say though is like I talked about, like I have a phenomenal nanny and I have a very involved husband who also owns a business. And there are some days that I'm like, hey, I need you to be home at 2:00 today because I need your help with X, Y, or Z appointment or whatever. And like it is a rarity that my husband says, like, I can't do that. Like he shows up when I need him to show up. He doesn't work for someone else, he works for himself. So we do have that luxury and flexibility in our schedules. Does that mean that then he has to go in for a couple hours on Saturday to make up that time? Usually, yeah. But like, it's okay because he can still be home at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, So I will say relying on our like little village, be it immediate family, our nanny, whatever it is, I've had to start giving up some of the like control of the mommyhood part that like is my own guilt. Like I want to be there. I want to be the one to drop off and pick up. Well, that's just not real life for a working parent, Yeah. And my son is like, can Miss Morgan pick me up today? That's our nanny. She's great. And I'm like, well, I get off on Tuesdays at 2:30. He's like, just send Miss Morgan, Mom. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just stay at work then. Like, and it's great. I'm so happy that they are like totally fine with that. But like in my own mind, I need to be there at 2:45 to pick him up. And he's like totally okay with whoever needs to pick him up, So like just letting go of some of that type A, like, got to do it myself stuff, So
you guys, this hour flew for me.
It did.
Yeah, it did.
So you guys are really in the thick of like, my kids are a little bit older than yours, but raising little ones, growing this business, still figuring out business ownership. And then we're, coming out of the pandemic. So there's so much. So I do like to end episodes with passing on advice to people in similar situations or thinking about embarking on these journeys. So what would be a few pieces of advice that you would each give to somebody considering whether it be entrepreneurship and creating their own business or career growth in a company, or dealing with what you're dealing with now? What would you say?
I think I would, just say I recommend that you have kind of like Nicole said, a little village, but not so much a little village. I think having honestly you, Jesse, and Nicole to vent to go to for encouragement when I need it, to, share my struggles, ask advice. I think having other people that you are that are in the same journey as you is really important, because I couldn't imagine doing it without the two of you, to be honest.
That's really important. I will say, Nicole and Amanda and I are on a group text chain where we are constantly going to each other in those harder, darker moments for support and advice. And I think that's great advice, having people that understand what you're doing and you can openly speak to.
Absolutely.
I think it's huge, the relatability also, because when you feel like it's only happening to you, it feels like a failure of your business habits or or the way you've structured something. Surely it's just me. And then when you reach out and say, guys, is anyone else having, oh my gosh, yes. And you're like, okay, then I can like sleep a little bit easier knowing that like, it's not just something that seriously I'm doing wrong with these employees, or I'm doing wrong with my clientele, or whatever it is. There's a relatability. So yeah, just to piggyback on what Amanda said, I would for sure like make sure that you have, and like it, and not that you guys aren't a great resource for me, because you are every single day almost, but the mentor that I spoke of early on, she still is a great resource for me too. And certain things she does not struggle with because she's so established.
Right.
And other things, she still does. And she'll, the hiring stuff lately, I've been like, where do you find employees? Because I'm having such a hard time. And she'll tell me the few places, and I'm like, okay, I'm in those same places. So I know I'm like on the right track, I guess. But, so just, having that part system is so important. And just knowing what you're getting into.
A coach is huge. I currently have a coach, and, part of this podcast is I want to be there for women. I want women to hear our stories, because when I was in like the darkest part of it, I wasn't listening to other people's stories and I wasn't relating to other people. And I just think being able to reach out to somebody else or to talk to somebody in your same position would have brought so much, I don't want to say like peace, because like you said, you just go to bed a little bit easier. It doesn't take away the problem, but you're not alone, and not feeling isolated and alone is priceless.
Yeah. Well, just the relatability, knowing that like, okay, it's not just me. It's not just me. I need to keep saying that to myself. Like, it's not just me. Everyone is feeling this. Every small business is feeling this, even outside of our career field, So
everywhere you go, you see a hiring sign.
Exactly.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you guys for coming on the podcast and sharing your stories, but also for being my support system and being part of my village. I love you both. You both inspire me daily. I look at you guys and know we're in this together and figuring it out together. And I know we all want to show up as our best for every person in our life. We don't want to be that hard person at work or that not present mom, and learning from you guys as we go through this together is amazing. And I'm so grateful. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Jessie.
Thank you.
And thanks.
Thanks for having us. This was great. Yeah. Thank you both.
Bye.
All right. Have a great day, guys. All right.
Bye, guys.